Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Saturday. Let's talk about something really cheerful. Let's tackle the subject of Ragnarok because I know that's just exactly what we all need. Now, one of my big hang-ups about Norse and Germanic spirituality has always been this big thing of Ragnarok. From the first time I learned it, I was just like, I don't want to. I just don't want to deal. And can you blame me? After the first 30 years of my life being dominated by prattle about Armageddon, and which I was told was coming any day now, the last thing I have wanted to do is wrestle with another "it's the end of the world" narrative and religion. But spiritual growth, as we all know, isn't about what we want to deal with necessarily. It's about what we need to deal with. This is especially true if we have specific patrons with whom we are sworn to. They often have their own opinions about what we need to deal with and the order in which that needs to occur. So, facing what makes us uncomfortable, learning to look at it, and then getting past the fear, beyond our hangups until we finally stop looking for excuses and just accept the nature of what is and why it is. So, after the first month that I was working with Loki, he began to nag me to deal with the whole Ragnarok issue, and I have been slowly cooperating. Emphasis on the slowly part. So let's talk about what Ragnarok is. There's a whole lot of details, and we're just going to go through them. So, simply defined, Ragnarok is the ultimate destruction of the entire universe and everything within it, up to and including the gods. It begins with three different roosters crowing. First, we have Faljar crowing in Jotunheim, Golemkambi crowing in Valhalla, and then there's an unnamed rooster that crows in Helheim. The meaning of the word Ragnarok is most often translated as fate of the gods, twilight of the gods, or doom of the gods. Sometimes Ragnarok is also referred to as Alderok, which means fate of mankind. So there will be a great winter. It will be the length of 3 normal winters, or the length of 3 whole years in a winter-like state. It just depends on what sources you're looking at it. But there will be no spring, no summer, no fall to break that all up. The wind is blowing from all directions, snow's coming from all directions, nothing is growing, the sun has lost its strength, there's no warmth, it's just disappeared from the earth, and the planet is just plunging into ice. Food becomes scarce, and then it disappears. Necessities to sustain life become impossible to come by. Laws are irrelevant, and any semblance of morality vanishes. Then we have Skull and Hattie, wolves who've always been hunting the sun and the moon since the beginning of time. They finally catch up with the sun and the moon, and they devour that. Then the stars vanish, and the sky is just an empty void. Yggdrasil is shaken, and all the trees and the mountains fall to the ground. Fenrir finally snaps his chain and runs free, seeking vengeance. Jormungandr rises up from the bottom of the seas, displacing the water, flooding the earth, and then he comes ashore. And this rocking of the world will actually free Nagfall, which is the nail ship, from where it's moored, and then it sails over the flooded earth, crewed by giants who are part of a larger force that is inflicting chaos and destruction. And of course, by this time, Loki has broken free of his bindings. In the meantime, Fenrir is running through the world with fire coming out of his eyes and his nostrils, and he's grown so big that while his lower jaw is touching the ground, his upper jaw is touching the sky, and he's eating anything that happens to be in his path. Jormungandr is releasing his venom, and it's poisoning the land, the water, and the air, and then the sky splits. And then there's a crack, and through that crack come the fire giants, led by Surt, who's wielding a flaming sword that's even brighter than the sun. Surt and the giants march on Bifrost, and the bridge will break behind them. Heimdall blows his horn in warning to the gods. Odin goes to the head of Mimir for counsel. The gods gird themselves for battle, and they meet the giants on a battlefield called Vigrid, which translates into plain where battle surges. Odin then battles Fenrir, along with all of his warriors from Valhalla at his side. Fenrir vanquishes them all, but then Vidar, son of Odin, rushes Fenrir, and then he ultimately kills him. The wolf Garm will fight the god Tyr, and they'll kill each other, as will Heimdall and Loki, and the god Freyr and Surt. Thor and Jormungandr finally have it out. Thor does succeed in killing him, thanks to his hammer Mjolnir. However, he's covered in venom, and he walks a grand total of 9 steps before he drops dead. Anything remaining of the world at this point falls into the sea, and only a great void remains. Everything is destroyed, everything is undone. It's as though it never even happened. Now, some stories say that this is the ultimate end. There's just nothing. It is just the end, nothing. It is absolute oblivion. However, other versions state that after this point, there is a rebirth of a new world. It rises up out of the waters. It's living, it's green, it's fertile and beautiful, and along with it come survivors of Ragnarok, among them being the gods Vidar, Vali, Balder, Holder, Thor's sons Modi and Magni, and a human man called Lif, meaning life, and a human woman called Lifthrasir, meaning striving afterlife, and they begin humanity again. There's a new sun. She is the daughter of the old sun. She rises up in the sky, and everything has begun anew under different management. There's a debate about which version of the end of the story is older, which is authentic. In short, we are arguing about which one is true. And some will claim that the version in which everything is gone but an empty void is actually the original and it's more pagan and all this and that. But I don't really hold with that. Okay, fine, I reject the claim because of the pagan emphasis on cycles of death and rebirth, of something always coming after the death. So the idea of a great big kablooey that just wipes out everything and without the hope of new life, that just doesn't seem consistent with anything that I've learned or with a pagan worldview. So during the Viking Age, Ragnarok was considered to be a literal, unalterable future event that would take place at some unspecified times. But modern pagans, by contrast, at least some of them, speak of Ragnarok as being a cyclical event, something that happens many times before and will occur many times again, with both literal and figurative and spiritual implications. So the fair question to ask is, well, which is it? Which is it? Can we know? I can't answer that question for you. I personally am firmly in camp cyclical, but I also realize that I could be quite wrong. But whether I'm right or wrong, the scale of Ragnarok, in any sense of the term, is so beyond any one being to affect, let alone control. It's going to be what it is, regardless of our hopes or fears or beliefs. So that being admitted, Ragnarok is not an easy thing to come to grips with, and for quite a while I just wasn't sure on why Loki has been so hell-bent on me confronting this. For a while I thought, okay, maybe this is about removing a chink in my psychological armor. I was so disgusted with all the Armageddon talk growing up that now I'm just turning a deaf ear to Ragnarok, and I'm not even wanting to entertain the concept. And maybe if I deal with it, then maybe some of that old gunk in my system will finally be dealt with, and it won't be affecting my thinking or my perceptions anymore. Okay, fair enough. But I still I'm sure that was part of it, but it just didn't feel like the whole reason. You know what I mean? Maybe you've experienced that with your own patron deities, is that, they're trying to teach you something and you think, okay, I came up, maybe this is why. And you realize, well, it could be part of the reason, but there's something's nagging me and I just know there's something more. And that certainly is what has proved to be the case in this instance for me. Now, a few weeks ago, when I started to, see what this might be about, it was while I was writing a guided meditation. And that's when Loki was nudging me. And I think I'm closer to the ballpark of what it was that I needed to see and that he wanted me to understand. Now, the meditation itself, I'd written it by request of a member of Blackbird's Brew, because she and I like to get together on Sunday afternoons and just talk and meditate together. Well, the meditation is set in space, and you're traveling through space. You come through this black hole that's swallowing up a solar system. And at the other end of it is a white hole. And the white hole is ejecting everything that's all the raw material that the black hole had eaten, and gradually you begin to visualize a new solar system forming. So you have the black hole, a place of destruction and death, a Ragnarok. And then on the other side you have a white hole, which is rebirth, resurgence, recreation. Now, as pagans, we talk often enough about reincarnation for ourselves, the cycles of nature, how things tend to come and go, but I don't think we necessarily take this idea to its logical conclusion. The universe had a birth, it will have a death, and then a new universe will be reborn. And even the gods themselves, they were born, they lived, they died, and then they came back. And it happens over and over again. What is it that holds this cycle together? And as I've been contemplating on this, I think this is one of the greater religious mysteries. And as I'm peering, or at least trying to peer beneath the surface of it, I think I'm finally beginning to get the point Loki was making about how this is all coming and going. And it doesn't mean that our actions are meaningless. It just means that we need to be in our time and be in as a part of that time and cooperate with the flow of that time, rather than trying to deny it or trying to forestall the inevitable. One example of this would be people who fruitlessly try to look many years younger than they actually are. So for a while, you can successfully disguise the aging process for a while, but there does come a point, and you do start to look the age you actually are. And youth doesn't last, midlife doesn't last, old age doesn't last. We eventually succumb to our mortality, and then we rest between the lives, and then we come right back and we do it all over again. This is not a process we can fight, and it doesn't help us to pretend like it isn't happening. Just as I suppose it wasn't helping me not to wrestle with the idea that Ragnarok, in some sense of the term, is an inevitability. Tea. I need tea. If I have more tea, I will talk better. Of this, I'm sure. But you get the point. It's about seeing that all of this is part of a larger fabric, and of the entire process has to go through. Everything has to come through fruition. And I think that is why I get a little bit frustrated when people look at our myths and they're looking for heroes or villains, or they're looking for, do I approve or disapprove? Do I agree or disagree? At a certain point, while you can learn from those things, and there is something to be gleaned from looking at it at that level, I think it loses sight of the larger issue. Our stories and the actions of our gods and everyone who's associated with them, it's about what we can learn from it. It's about giving us some kind of framework to try to see something larger that's beyond the face value events in our stories and myths. This is what we're seeking in religion and worship, and why nothing can ever truly be lost, no matter how much information gets deliberately destroyed by our antagonists, or any information that we simply fail to pass on to the next generation of pagans. Even in the absolute worst case scenario, the connection to the divine, as individuals and as a species, it can always be reformed. It may take years or even millennia, but the relationship can be rekindled. These truths and these principles can be rediscovered. Now, the practice and the form of the worship will look the same, will be the same. We might know the gods by different names at some future date, but it will still be real, it will still be true, it will still matter, and it will still be to our spiritual benefit and enlightenment. And I think that is what he's wanting me to see about Ragnarok. This isn't some dreadful thing to dread. This isn't something for me to fear. It isn't something for me to fight off as a concept. It's about something for me to see as being part of a greater whole. So let me know what you think about it. I would be very interested to hear some other people's views, how they've wrestled with on this subject, any insights that they've gleaned along the way. So by all means, come visit me at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. And of course, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.